Okie dokie. So I recently had a client ask me to share more of my stories with more people because they inspire her and show how we can rise and create with the universe in the most difficult, bewildering times. Now, I don't love to talk about myself. I love to help other people and occasionally give illustrations of the power of the universe. But I have a lot of examples. So I'm going to start today at a random place and share. Oh gosh. The other reason why I have hesitation is because there's been some very difficult times in my life. And like I almost want to hurry and tell the whole story so that you also don't judge the other person. Because people are fallible, vulnerable, trying all the things. So I just ask, kind of like, if you watch a video and they say this isn't medical advice, my warning is before you jump in and to defend me or even feel bad for me, wait till the end of the story. Okay? Um, because there's power in everything. So I asked Spirit to tell me what story to share, and here is one. So, my real mother, I lived with her part time until I was about 4. And then at 4, my dad and my stepmom took me to court, and apparently other people were in the court, other family members were in the court, in order for my dad to get sole custody. And I remember, oh, see, this you could judge me on. I'm glad I'm starting with this one. I remember meeting with the judge in his chambers. I don't remember if anyone else was there, but I remember lying to the judge about my mom. Lying because inside my little 4-year-old mind, the things that happened, no one would believe. Even though people did believe, like obviously my stepmom and my dad believed, and I now know other people did. But I didn't think that they were bad enough that I would get to stay with my dad. And so I came up with the story that my mom took a fork and turned it in my arm. And that she used her nail. I mean, this is a 4-year-old, right? And she pushed her nail so hard that I got a blood blister. And I thought these would be tragic, terrible things. And I did have like a wound on my arm and a wound on my finger, and I have no idea how I got them. But my mom definitely didn't do them. But what I didn't tell the judge was there were times when my dad picked me up. And there was one time where my mom came out and got on the hood of our car with a big old butcher knife and was screaming and was crazy. And all I wanted to do was stay with my dad. Or another time where I mean, I was young, I was under 5, right? That my mom was so drunk that she didn't hear me, and I was in my bedroom at her place. And I'm banging on the door, like the door had been hit through some kind of fight in the house. With one of my mom's boyfriends or something. And so the door was like jammed shut and I couldn't get it open and I had to go to the bathroom. And so I remember crying and banging to get out. And I can't imagine at that time that I cried or banged very loud, but nobody came. Whether it was quiet or loud, I just know at that time I was afraid to make noise. And so it might not have been loud enough to get her attention. Anyways, I peed my pants. I was too old to pee my pants. And then I remember my dad coming to get me. And I remember times where I would hide so I wouldn't have to go, but I didn't have a voice. Didn't have a voice, or so I thought, to be able to say no. And here's the thing, it wasn't all bad. I had awesome time with my cousins and my aunt. And maybe I even had a great time with my mom. I don't recall that. But when I became a mom, what you think you're going to hear is I realized, like, how could a mom do these things? But instead, I realized the devastation she must have felt losing her one and only daughter. She eventually had 2 more kids, but I was her very first. Losing her daughter and feeling so out of control. And that the only thing that she knew to do was to fight. I have compassion for her. Now, as a 4-year-old, I believe I was already creating with the universe. And I allowed myself to be out of that environment. But I put myself in another environment that I had no idea was coming. However, I created a way out. Absolutely. And it wasn't until much older, when I made other choices that got a little bit more conscious, that I realized that I was always doing this one thing, which was asking for a different possibility, being willing to not know what that possibility was, but asking for it anyway. And there was something in me as a child that did conform. I did in many ways. But there was a seed inside of me, I call it my muse, that was not willing to completely let go, to do things as others wanted. Even though I became quieter and became a bit of a people pleaser, I didn't give up. What I'm like, I will give you a next story in another video. This one didn't do a whole lot of illustrating the power within struggles, or maybe it did. I'm thinking for the moment because the interesting thing is, as a child, I knew something that has taken me a lot of years to remember, and that a lot of adults need to remember, is we are not alone. Receive support, reach out for support, reach out for life-changing support. And that little girl who was 4 was willing to ask, was even willing to lie. And I really don't believe that the lie is what changed things, because there were several family members who advocated on my behalf, letting people know that I would be in a better space. I would in safer space with my dad all the time. And so that little girl received the support. And it might sound like crazy to you. Of course she did. Like, what else is she gonna do? just make everyone happy. But at the time, I was willing to shake things up. I was willing to be part of the system. And now I don't advocate doing what I did at 4 and lying. Like, I don't advocate that. There are different ways. And yet, it was the trajectory of my life. And I'm super grateful that that happened. So, this is video 1. We're going to see if you even want to show up for video 2. And I'm going to believe that my client is right, that people want to hear these stories. I'm going to do them anyway. So here's me working through it as I share and get vulnerable with you. Coming back for another one in a minute.